Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a seriously close look at a market that's, well, it sits right at the foundation of modern industry and resource management. We're talking ion selective permeable membranes, or ISPMs.
hmm You might not hear about them every day, but they're incredibly important.
Exactly. And the data we're diving into today, it's from cognitive market research. It shows this is a high-growth, globally essential industry. Our mission today is pretty straightforward. We've got 12 years of detailed market forecast, right? 2021 through to 2033. And we're going to sift through that to find, where the fastest growth is happening and who the big players are.
And maybe before we jump into the numbers, it's worth just quickly touching on what these ISBNs actually do,
Good point.
because that really explains the growth. They're essentially super precise filters. Think of them like gatekeepers at the molecular level. They're designed to let specific ions that's charged atoms or molecules pass through while blocking others.
So high purity applications.
Exactly. Massive industrial water desalination, specialized chemical production, and even cutting-edge energy storage, like certain types of batteries and fuel cells. They're fundamental.
That clarity is crucial. Okay, so let's talk scale then, because we are talking serious money here. Back in 2021, the global market was already valued at roughly, $5.03 billion USD.
That's right, just over $5 billion to start. But the really eye-opening figure is the forecast. By 2033, it's projected to soar to nearly $14 billion, almost $13.9 billion to be precise.
Wow, nearly tripling.
Exactly. And that growth isn't just a sudden spike. We're looking at a compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, of 8.8% across that entire period.
8.8% year on year for over a decade.
Yeah, that signals really sustained fundamental demand. This isn't a nice-to-have technology. It's critical infrastructure for global growth.
Absolutely. Okay, so where is this near double-digit growth actually coming from? Because it's not uniform, right? The data points clearly to certain regions really driving the acceleration. Let's start with the heavyweight, Asia-Pacific, APAC. Not only was APAC the largest region back in 2021, pulling in almost $1.9 billion, but its projected CGR is the highest of any region, an impressive 9.48%, almost 9.5%.
And when you dig into APAC, it's this fascinating mix of, massive volume from established players and sheer velocity from others. The data really highlights India. It's called out specifically as the fastest overall market,
Okay.
soaring at a KGR of over 10.4%.
Okay.
That's huge, a massive rate signaling significant investment.
Great. 10.4% for India, that really stands out because China, which is the biggest contributor in APAC by revenue,
Yeah.
started at over $500 million in 21. Its growth is strong, about 9.7%,
In
right?
fact, 9.69%,
Yeah.
very strong.
But India is accelerating faster, almost a full percentage point quicker. What's driving that difference?
Well, it seems to be about the infrastructure catch-up phase. China's been building out capacity for a long time. India and also Southeast Asia collectively seem to be in this hyper-acceleration mode right now. That 10.4% in India, and the data also shows Southeast Asia growing collectively at over 10%, a 10.1% CAGR. It suggests huge immediate demand. Things like clean water infrastructure, advanced manufacturing. They need these membranes now.
So it's speed and necessity driving that higher rate versus China's established enormous volume.
Precisely. It's the fast movers setting the pace.
Got it. And just for completeness, the data also mentions Singapore being right up there, nearly 10%, 9.94% CGR. And Taiwan's also strong at 9.2%. So a lot of dynamism in APAC.
Definitely. Japan and South Korea are growing solidly too, around 8.8%, 8.9%. Australia a bit lower at 8.15%, but the focus is really on India and Southeast Asia for that top-tier growth.
Okay, now let's pivot. Let's look at the region with the second highest growth rate globally, South America, which, sometimes flies under the radar in these global tech markets, but it's accelerating fast. A regional CGR of 9.16%.
That's right, taking the market from around $282 million in 2021 up to over $800 million forecast for 2033. Again, nearly tripling.
And what's interesting here is the distribution within South America.
Yeah, it's not evenly spread. Brazil is the biggest market there in terms of initial size, starting at about $115 million. Its growth is solid, just over 9%. But Argentina is the real standout in terms of speed. It's posting a CGR of 9.74%.
Wow. Okay, so Argentina is actually outpacing Brazil, the regional giant, in growth rate.
It is.
What does that suggest? Is it like it's a specific policy push or a particular industry booming there?
It usually points to something localized and critical. When a smaller market shows the fastest growth, it often signals a sudden surge in need. perhaps related to mining, lithium extraction maybe, or specialized agriculture or manufacturing, where this membrane tech is suddenly essential.
Right, a specific industrial requirement.
Could be. And Chile is also very strong, nearly 9.4% CAGR. So with Argentina and Chile leading the pace, it suggests the southern part of the continent is seeing a really concentrated push for this kind of advanced filtration capability.
Okay, that covers the high-velocity regions, the accelerators. Now let's shift to the bedrock markets, North America and Europe. Massive in size, providing that essential stability for the whole industry, even if their growth rates are a bit lower than the global average.
Exactly. North America really sets the standard for stability and sheer scale. The overall regional CGR is robust, 8.15%. But the starting revenue base is just huge, over $1.3 billion back in 2021.
And here's a key point from the data. The United States is the single largest country market globally by revenue.
That's right.
In 2021 alone, the U.S. market was over $1 billion, $1.06 billion. That shows its massive foundational role.
Absolutely. And its growth rate, 8.02% CAGR. Yes, it's slightly below the global average. But because the base is so enormous, that 8% growth still translates into monumental increases in absolute dollar terms every single year.
It's the mature giant. It can't sustain those 10% rates we see in India or Southeast Asia, perhaps.
Precisely. It's about consistent, large volume demand. And the U.S. stability is mirrored by its neighbors. Canada is actually growing a bit faster, nearly 8.8% CAGR. And Mexico's solid, too, at 8.35%.
So North America is like the deep pocket, the market that absorbs huge volumes steadily.
You could say that. It provides a strong floor for the whole industry.
Okay, that brings us naturally to Europe, where the picture seems a bit more complex, more varied. The overall regional TGR for Europe is 8.4%, so slightly higher than North America, actually.
It is, but the performance really varies country by country. It's quite nuanced. Germany is the clear standout in Europe.
Okay.
It started with a strong base, nearly $229 million in revenue in 2021, and it's projecting a really high CGR of 9.13%.
9.13%. That's significantly higher than many of its neighbors, right? And above the global average.
It is. That's a key anomaly for a large, established Western European economy.
Yeah.
It suggests very strong, maybe localized industrial investment there. Heavy industry, perhaps.
Germany, the quiet overachiever in this sector. Interesting. We also see solid growth from the UK and Spain. They're both around 8.7%.
Yes, 8.71% for the UK, 8.715% for Spain.
Yeah.
Very similar, strong rates.
But the data also notes one major European country at the lower end of the growth spectrum, Russia.
Yeah, Russia's listed CAGR is just over 7%, 7.059% to be exact, the lowest among the major European countries mentioned.
And the others? France, Italy?
The sort of mid-range for the region, France at 7.8%, Italy around 8%, which means Germany's strong performance, along with the UK and Spain, is really essential in pulling that overall European average up to 8.4%.
So investment in ISPM tech isn't uniform across Europe. It's concentrated?
Highly concentrated, it seems, driven by specific industrial needs or maybe regulatory demands in certain countries.
Okay. Let's move to our final segment, the emerging sort of mid-growth regions, the Middle East and Africa. Starting with the Middle East, this region is posting a strong collective CAGR, 9.06%.
Which actually puts it slightly above the global average.
Right, reflecting a lot of activity there. It started at around $211 million in 2021, and again, it's set to nearly triple.
And here, you can really see the connection to critical national needs, particularly around water.
Desalination, I imagine.
Absolutely. Look at the UAE, for example. It's accelerating very quickly, nearly 9.72% CAGR.
Wow.
Turkey is also very strong, 9.43%.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia, just behind Germany, actually, at 9.14%.
So that massive investment in water infrastructure and diversification we hear about, it's directly driving demand for these membranes.
It seems undeniable. High-purity water is just existential in many parts of the region. That makes the investment non-negotiable. Qatar is also showing solid growth, nearly 8.8%, and Egypt at 8.5%.
Okay, and finally, Africa's contribution. The continent shows a solid collective CAGR, 8.43%, pretty much keeping pace with Europe, interestingly.
Yes, but off a much smaller starting base, remember. Just over $191 million in 2021. South Africa's the dominant player here, both in starting revenue around $70 million. And it's leading the regional growth with a 9.1% CAGR.
Okay, so South Africa is driving much of that 8.4% average for the continent.
It appears so. Nigeria is also a key contributor, growing at about 8.7%. And again, like in other high-growth developing regions, this points towards foundational investment, infrastructure, industrial processing capacity, things that need this high-tech filtration.
Wow. Okay, that was a whirlwind tour of the globe through the lens of ISPM market data. A lot to digest there. Let's try to quickly synthesize the key takeaways for you, the listener. What should you really carry forward from this deep dive? First off, the big picture. This ISPM market is set for colossal growth, no question, really tripling in size from about $5 billion to almost $14 billion between 2021 and 2033. That's huge.
And that growth is universal. Every region is growing substantially, confirming this isn't some niche tech. It's core, foundational.
Second key point. The engines of that growth acceleration are clearly the dynamic markets in Asia, Pacific, and South America. Both regions are posting BGRs over 9%. That tells you where the fastest new industrial development is likely happening.
Right. And third, if you want to pinpoint the specific high-velocity economies, the places where investment seems to be exploding, you need to watch India, Southeast Asia as a collective, Singapore, Argentina, and the UAE.
All posting those really high TG,
Yes.
9.7% or even higher. They're the fastest movers.
Definitely ones to watch for momentum.
And finally, point 4. Don't forget the bedrock, the stability factor. The United States remains the single largest market contributor globally by sheer revenue size. That billion-dollar-plus market anchors the whole industry.
Absolutely. Provides that essential baseline volume.
Okay, so this brings us to a final thought, something for you, the listener, to maybe chew on after this. We've clearly established that the highest growth rates, those near 10% markets like India, SE, Asia, Argentina, the UAE, they're clustered in regions undergoing rapid, massive development. Infrastructure, industry. And we know ISPMs are foundational to that. Water purification, energy advanced manufacturing. So the question is, given this huge ongoing investment in these specific high-growth economies, what specific sectors within them are truly driving the fastest demand for these membranes right now?
Is it the urgent need for massive desalination plants? Is it the rollout of next-gen manufacturing facilities? Or maybe it's huge new investments in, say, specialized battery technology that heavily relies on these membranes for performance and safety.
That's the connection, isn't it, between the hard financial data and the big real-world industrial shifts?
Exactly. Understanding that link between the numbers and the underlying industrial and policy drivers, that's really the core insight here, I think.
A perfect way to wrap it up. Looking beyond the numbers to connect the dots. That concludes our deep dive into the Ion Selective Permeable Membrane market forecast. Thank you so much for joining us. We explored some critical research today, all sourced from cognitive market research. Hold on to that knowledge, think about those connections, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.